Hello, viewers. This is Introduction to Research, EDFN 508, and the research method presented today will be surveys.
Researchers are Casey, Sarah, Jackie, Hannon, and Maya. As you can see here, today we'll be reviewing with you our method of research, questions and educational research connection, our data collection method, and our findings.
First up is, what is a survey? Surveys are one method of gathering information by asking questions to a group of individuals. Some advantages to surveys are that they're quick and easy to conduct. They're very cost effective. They're free. There's lots of online sites, SurveyMonkey, Google Forms, Snap Surveys, Qualtrics. And really that this data that you're collecting is analyzed by you. So you'll get accuracy, reliability, and it applying to your goals. Some disadvantages and limitations. One is the accuracy. Some people might not answer honestly on the surveys. And then also you might see some non-responses. So people might skip multiple questions or a few questions that can affect your data. What can surveys look like? They can be conducted in various mediums. You can have paper and pencil, online forums, social media, face-to-face, phone, and email. And you can also have a different variety of questions, multiple choice, rankings, agreeing, disagreeing, drop downs, and some open-ended questions. Here's some key terminology that is related to surveys: hermeneutic paradigm, naturalistic approach, action research, personal narratives, qualitative, quantitative, retrospective bias, validity, reliability, and questionnaire. A lot of these terms are familiar to us from our readings, but I will point out that surveys are majority quantitative research, examining issues represented with numbers. You will see some qualitative data in there from open-ended questions.
The types of questions best addressed with the survey method are listed here, as you can see. Questions like behavioral questions, factual questions, perceptual, contextual, experience-based, narrative, and action research. In addition, attitudinal questions. Here you have the educational research utilizing surveys. For example, holistic evaluations are things we see when we do surveys, narrative study surveys, student satisfaction, teacher evaluation, impact of educational interventions, parent engagement, and longitudinal studies on educational outcomes.
When you are using surveys, there are certain things that you need to be aware of. So first and foremost is really about your questions, right? So you want to have a nice mix of open-ended questions, but then also closed questions. How you're wording those questions is really critical, as there could be different interpretations for how they interpret them. And then also too, when you're thinking about your participants, if you're going back in time, it's called retrospective bias. So if you're asking people to go back in time to when they were a child, you're relying on their memory. So that might not always be 100% accurate. Also, another thing with surveys is that if you have less than 80% participation from your respondents, that's introducing bias if you're not accounting for 20%, right? And then also with surveys, you want to make sure that you're not fatiguing. People aren't feeling survey fatigue. And then probably most importantly is how you are recording the data. So how are you analyzing your results? Are you showing them in graphs, bar charts, etc.? And you really want to pull out common themes and see similarities and differences.
We conducted our survey using Qualtrics which is a survey creating site that allows for a lot of different question asking options. And our survey had 5 multiple choice questions, 4 statements that participants were asked to star from 1 to 5 based on how much how much importance the statements had for them, and then 1 short answer question at the end. And we had 81 participants.
So once we got the data back from Qualtrics, we organized the data into a Google Sheet. You're able to export that right into a Google Sheet where you can filter and group within each column. From there, we made charts to represent the data within each of the columns. And then we discussed the results and what we saw with each chart. We used graphs, we pulled out themes, direct quotes, we made word clouds, trying to triangulate the data. We also used all the data. So we were avoiding any acquiescence bias by picking out data that best suited answering our question. We used all 81 participants in our data. For the open-ended question, we discussed how we wanted to relay this data that we got, and we decided to use a word cloud to really accentuate the highly repeated words or phrases that we were seeing. And we did this via a computer generator to see what the computer was pulling out, but then we also hand selected words within our research group of words that were standing out to us to kind of compare the two. Part of this, so one of our questions was, how many years have you been teaching? And this doesn't directly answer our question of what leads one to become a teacher, but it does give us some demographic information. And this could be useful when we go to generalize the results to the population studied. In our case, the majority was people who have been teaching for over 20 years. But as you can see through this, we did have a diverse mix of teacher experience.
So moving on from like kind of the factual question, kind of behavioral question. We asked kind of when they considered a career in education. So kind of maybe teasing out what led them. And here we have 18 to 25-year-old is when they first considered it. And then younger than 10 were the kind of two main ones, kind of indicating that, you know, when they were younger, they might have been inspired by a teacher. And then, you know, when they're making a career choice, you know, after high school, they want to pursue that further and get more training. We also asked what route led you to becoming a teacher. So again, maybe more factual, but kind of we're looking at, you know, teachers that maybe are inspired early on are going to go through a standard teacher preparation program, which kind of matches our hunch. We kind of all figured that would be the case.
So this one, this question, did any experiences with your own teachers at school contribute to taking the teaching path yourself? We were actually kind of surprised at some of the results. When you look at this, you're seeing that a little over 30% are saying that their own teachers weren't their sole motivators, as compared to almost 50% is teachers who had helped them in the past. And then this one, I think, was probably the big aha or the big surprise for us. When you look at this chart, you're seeing that 48% of respondents are saying that their family members were not teachers. And I think when we all went into this, we thought, oh yeah, probably like teaching is a family thing. So we were very surprised to see that almost half did not have a teacher in their family.
On our 1 through 5 scale questions, we asked the overarching question, if asked what aspects of being a teacher are important to you, how likely would you be to respond with the following? And in terms of the question, I appreciate the security, stability teaching provides. As you can see, the majority was a 5 scale, although 4 and 3 were very nearly close. When asked if I enjoy learning about and or teaching content topics, again, 5 was the majority. When asked, I want to provide students with meaningful experiences, 5 was the clear majority. And when asked, I have always been passionate about teaching, again, 5, the clear majority.
And here is the word cloud that we generated from the the open style questions. So kind of, again, linking back to that more quantitative data, we see here most people in their short answer responses were putting words like working with children and then teacher. Now, teacher could relate to teacher did inspire them, which kind of relates back to like how they, why they got into teaching in the first place. And then, of course, working with children, that came up a lot in those short answers. So kind of, seeing the trends and patterns unfold here.
And in addition to words and phrases that were taken directly from the short answers provided by the participants, we also had researchers look at each short answer individually and isolate/group more themes that came up. So for example, importance we see is very big on this word cloud, which is the cloud of which themes came up when the researchers looked at it. Importance being participants who indicated that they had that they cared a lot about the importance of education or the importance of development, or people who, so we see here influence of teachers and family members. That was a big one. There were a lot of people who influenced either their own experiences with teachers, be them good or bad, or family members who were teachers inspired them. Career change motivation. We had a few participants saying that they had some sort of, one of the words was realization, one of the words isolated, that there was some point where they realized they wanted to become a teacher, whether there was something that made that change for them for the career they had previously had. Many people cited directly that they had passion for working with children. Many said that they got into teaching because they had some desire to provide positive experiences for their students. Many indicated that they had always been drawn to teaching, that they had felt a connection to the field from an early age. Many people expressed that teaching holds personal significance to them. And also people talked about job security and the schedule that they were able to have, that teaching as a job provides for their own home life with their family. Many people cited their own experiences in education. Many people talked about struggles that they had had growing up and the way that their experience in education helped them, shape them, influence them in their drive to become a teacher. And then many people talked about the cultural and social impacts that being a teacher has on student lives.
So on these, kind of building off of what Maya was just saying with common themes, we had just asked an open-ended question, few words or a few sentences, what led you to become a teacher? And one of those themes was really around this early passion for teaching. So you can see here some of the direct quotes. I wanted to be a teacher since I was 4 years old, or I always envisioned myself helping younger children. The other common theme that came out was about role models, right? So as teachers, we are role models to students. But these role models can take many shapes and forms, right? So here we see a quote about my gymnastics teacher suggested that I look into it, or my high school math teacher really changed my life. And then also too, hopefully you're seeing a common theme where there's a love for children and for learning for teachers, right? I love working with little kids. I love kids. I love learning and anybody willing to learn.
And then towards the end, we had some questions that were coming up as we were analyzing the data. And the one big thing was trying to look at this crossover data and being able to compare questions, multiple questions together to find some trends between those columns of data to see if there are any correlations within the data. For instance, trying to look into how old were you when you started and see if there was a correlation with which program that you went into, or when you knew that you wanted to be a teacher, and did you go into it immediately, or was it a second career? And then the last part was based on our findings, just refining the questions to better address the overarching question and maybe taking some out or organizing it differently.
Thank you so much for your attention to our presentation today. Here are references for your reference. Again, thank you so much for joining us for survey methods. We hope you gained some insight about surveys.